How we doing, Mets fans? It's Wardy here, and we're breaking down the latest in Mets land. And I'm chopping at the bit to get right into this one, because you guys see from the title down below, we not only have the current connection between the Mets and Willy Adames to break down from multiple reports, ESPN Radio, New York Post, and then some that we're going to get into here very shortly on how the Mets could not only acquire Willy Adames this offseason, but how a signing for him just became more greater and more possible than ever before from the minds of many, including myself as a Mets fan, initially heading into this offseason, the connection with himself and David Stearns, the potential of playing at second and or third base. Yes, you heard that correctly. And from there, we're going to get into more remarks from David Stearns as he spoke to the media yet again here today in the GM meetings in San Antonio, Texas. From there, we're also going to highlight some key remarks from Scott Boras, the key agent there for not only Juan Soto, Polar Bear Pete Alonso, and plenty other coveted free agents that the Mets will look to acquire this offseason. Then we're also going to get into the latest signing for the Mets on the reliever front as they officially acquired over the past hour or so per Anthony DeComo on a minor league deal, Rico Garcia. Was there to know about him? Why exactly is he going to be the next crafty spring training invite to impact the Mets for the better in 2025? And to top it all off, a positive Roki Sasaki update presented by SNY, and more is what we're going to get into. So make sure to smash those buttons as you first chime in. And before we get into our amazing sponsor at BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook, I did just want to say to each and every one of you guys, thank you so much for the endless support all season and off season long. Because of you guys, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure we pump out consistent content, even on a day like today, as you guys can see right here, right now. If you're wondering, Wardy, what are you about to do? What are you about to show? You guys see those little patches down there on my tummy? Yes, I had hernia surgery earlier this morning. I'm running on absolutely nothing right now. I was laying down most of the entire day, but I want to get this video out. So that is exactly what I'm doing for each and every one of you right here, right now. So thank you guys for the support. I hope that I'm doing my best to reciprocate that by being here as consistent for you guys as I possibly can all off season long. Now let's deep dive the latest here in Mets land, starting with our amazing sponsor that you all know very well. Yes, BetUS. BetUS, who has you covered all your sports betting needs. Head over there, folks, by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs by going to betus.com.pa today. And we're going with our hockey bets for the first time this season, as I'm hammering both my New York Rangers and to some of you, your New Jersey Devils there on the money line straight in a two-leg parlay for tomorrow's games, and that's going to be a $20 two-leg parlay to win me 21, so hopefully a win of $41 or so total is what we're looking for. Good luck to all my respective sports bettors out there that tail these picks. Know that I'm not a sports betting expert, just a diehard fan, diehard Rangers fan. Don't love my Devils at all, but I know that they are certainly a talented team that my man Ant would love to say as well. So let's get back into breaking down the latest here in Mets land, but shout out BetUS once more for all your sports betting needs. And guys and gals, let's get into this one. Let's start with the remarks that we heard from ESPN Radio just a day ago, and shout once more to my guy Mets News Rumors on X for being the first to really be the reason why I came across this earlier yesterday on my timeline on X.
Willy Adames is someone who I've heard that other teams are considering moving to second or third base. I've heard the Mets would consider moving him to third base.
So just bear that in mind right here, right now. The Mets are not only interested, but they're considering Willy Adames in a separate position from shortstop. Now, initial reaction, this is not overly shocking, only because if the Mets are going to run at all similar to how they have, even under Billy Epler, one commonality that they had is they did have interest in Trey Turner a couple off seasons ago on a higher AV, shorter term deal and a different position from shortstop, obviously. They tried for Carlos Correa for him to potentially be their man at the hot corner for north of a decade. That didn't work because the guy's ankle's cooked. Willy Adames is a very interesting option for the Mets to consider right now. As John Heyman reported and broke earlier today, or really just discussed rather, how David Stearns acquired the free agent shortstop Willy Adames. Let's not forget this. Back in 2021, from the Tampa Bay Rays there all the way to Milwaukee, David Stearns, one of his final big splashes as GM and at the helm there of the Brewers, was acquiring their eventual star shortstop there, and Willy Adames, who had himself a massive season here for the Brewers. Just don't talk about Willy Adames and Jesse Winker, because we know where they stand, and I would love to see them both as teammates next year if that is all possible. They can bury the hatchet there. But Adames is thought to be considering third base as well as other infield options. And one thing that is very important to make note about this entire situation when we talk about Willy in particular is simply the fact that Willy Adames is a guy that wants to win, and he's willing to play in a separate position from his premium position there at shortstop to do exactly that. Now, in case you guys are unaware on just how good Willy Adames was in his walk here with the Milwaukee Brewers, because we all know he's not going back. He's not going to be getting a payday from them at all, so that ship has sailed. The 29-year-old shortstop there batting from the right side, 161 games this season, 93 runs scored, 32 home runs, 112 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, a 251, 331, 462 clip for a 4.8 WAR, and a 119 WRC plus, which means he himself accounted for basically 20% better than the average batter in baseball, and he also accounted for roughly 5 total wins himself solely by the Brewers per wins above replacement. Now, as we look at throughout the career norms here of Willy Adames, we know that he is a streaky hitter. We know that he has a loopy swing. These are all true things. Adames is one that I have been fairly critical of in the past when I've evaluated the Brewers, just because of the inconsistencies that you get with them. Last year was a down year, a 217 average, a 310 on base percentage, a 407 slug for a 94 WRC plus. Makes sense that he balled out now in a big year for the Brewers where they had depth in their lineup far greater than anyone expected heading into the season. And for him in a walk year, we all know Adames is looking for the bag, rightfully so. But this is a unique situation, not only for Adames, but for the Mets. When you look at the current shortstop market, there isn't a whole lot there, so that is what makes Adames really enticing for a lot of teams to try to ink on a long-term deal. However, knowing that the reporting is true that Adames is willing to play at either second or what I think would make most sense at third base, and for the Mets, I think that makes most sense. That way, you can still try to consider your in-house talent in Jet Williams, Ronnie Rizzo to a certain degree, Luis Angel Acuna to a higher degree right now based on his recent performance down the stretch this season as guys you can consider at second base. Should you part ways with Jeff McNeil, which David Stearns said he's comfortable with him there, but they will consider, options down the road if it is deemed best. Jose Iglesias is no longer on the roster. We would all love back, but even then, you're likely not going to have him playing every day. So I would like that youth movement to continue there at second base. But at the hot corner, this is where things get interesting, because as amazing as Mark Vientos was last season, as much as I love him as a third baseman in the future for the Mets, I love the idea of Mark Vientos' bat being the thing that's going to prevail more often than not, with the defense not being an issue, because he's going to find himself more at either first base or DH. David Stearns has already said this offseason that they have to shift Vientos to first base because A, you lose Pete Alonso, B, he goes down with injury, or C, just because you want a toy between himself and Alonso at DH should you bring him back. Those are things you can consider. Now, I think Vientos would make more sense at DH with the assumption that you can hopefully bring back Pete Alonso. But in a world where, say, Alonso walks and say you, God willing, bring in a Juan Soto, but you're still looking to do more, this is how you can do more with Willy Adames on a shorter-term deal, higher AAV, giving him an absolute bag. And I would even go the lengths of saying that while I understand it probably is in the best interest of Adames at this point in his career, knowing that he's looking for a big payday after a massive walk year there in Milwaukee, different than Teoscar Hernandez, who had a down 2023 with the Seattle Mariners, which is what led him to inking just a one-year deal with the Dodgers. But there are some similarities there that I personally see in the sense of, okay, if you can ink Willy Adames to potentially a one-year deal, maybe with a second-year option, a high AAV option, for him to have the greater chance to win it all than he ever has had in his career, I'm really curious to see how much interest he would have in that. Now, Willy on a one-year deal, again, feels very hard to fathom for a guy of his nature and given the current market. However, shorter term, anywhere from 1 to 3+ years is something that I could see the Mets really hammering. 4 years maybe, and this all goes back to the David Stearns connection. No one in a front office, not named the Milwaukee Brewers and the Rays to an extent, knows Willy Adames more than David Stearns. David not only acquired him back in 2021 from the Rays, but he has a great report and understanding about how his swing works, about how his plate approach is going to be. And with the depth that the Mets already have in their lineup, just imagine a Willy Adames, as you guys see here, with 32 home runs, 112 RBIs, raking for the Mets next season. Even if those numbers go down, which they probably will, especially at playing at Citi Field, going down to, say, 25 to north of 30 home runs. We're looking at an OPS that isn't as much in the range there of right around 800, but maybe more so 750 or so. The WAR might go down, but that's okay as long as you have the balance throughout the rest of the lineup, as long as you're not investing in him to say, 7-8+ years, which no one wants to do. Adames at 262, 238, 217, 251 average hitter. The on-base percentage is what concerns me more because he is not consistent enough of a slugger to warrant not having the strong OBP on a year-by-year basis. Pretty much right around a 320 or so on-base percentage for his career, 444 on the slug, and on the average 248. So still a very talented player, a little bit above league average, but one that when it comes to the moxie, when it comes to the snarl, when it comes to the attitude, I think he would bode oh so well in this Mets clubhouse. And if Jesse Winker returns, then they're going to have to bury the hatchet some way, somehow. So that's another other thing that we would foresee to happen in that current situation. So Mets fans, I'm really curious how you would feel about the potential of landing one Willy Adames. As you guys can see from his savant numbers here, again, 78th percentile xWOBA, 84th in expected slugging, a little below an expected batting average, 81st percentile in barrel percentage, 84th in sweet spot, 77th in bat speed, 12th in squared up percentage, chase percentage right around league average, low on the whiff, low on the K rate. He swings and misses at a good rate, and the walk percentage that we see at 80%. So he does take a good amount of walks for a guy that still strikes out at a very strong clip there in the worst of the 28% in Major League Baseball this past season. A strong fielder, though, his range, 68th percentile, so not terrible, but not great either. 75th percentile in arm strength, and if you can shift him to the hot corner, give Vientos more consistent reps there at DH/first base, and then you can continue to rotate your in-house options at second base. That feels like a recipe for success for this Mets team and David Stearns, who knows Willy quite well. So let me know your thoughts on Willy Adames, everybody. But let's go from talking about Willy Adames getting into more here in Mets land, because there's a lot of other topics I want to hammer, but I want this to be the main talking point of tonight's discussion, because we got a lot more content coming for you guys tomorrow, as long as I feel well enough to be able to do all that for each and every one of you. So as we can see here, let's see some remarks here from Scott Boras when talking about Juan Soto, the free agent market, and as well as Mr. Polar Bear Pete Alonso. If you guys want to also check out that article on Willy Adames from John Heyman, at least, here is exactly that for you guys to check out. But all right, let's hear Scott Boras' comments.
Market in relation to the Mets.
Well, I think again, it's where Juan is open to. He said it when he.
Well, not just Juan, but broad base.
Well, I think the Mets are obviously trying to get to their goal, which is winning a world championship, and I think they've been very clear about pursuing this aggressively in the market.
So yeah, just again, normal kind of wordplay that you're going to get from Scott Boras to talk up and not talk down about the Mets, because he knows that he's going to make a lot of money from the Mets this offseason one way or the other. Here's Jesse Winker, Willy Adames. Let's never forget Jesse rounding first, riding second, talking some smack there to Adames. Adames saying, let's meet in the parking lot. Jesse doesn't do it. Why? Because he wins the series instead there and advances to the NLDS. Here's Scott Boras' remarks on Polar Bear Pete Alonso.
We hear a lot about the bear market for power hitting first baseman, and for Pete's sake, it's the polar opposite.
So that's what you have there, the polar opposite. Again, the wordplay with this man. You think for all the time that he has to come up with these things, that he'd be a little less corny. But again, I'd be a hypocrite if I was commenting, because I'm corny too. I get it. Here's David Stearns when talking about the Mets catching position for 2025. I thought this was important.
Catching tandem completely set for next year. Those two guys.
I would expect it. I would expect so. You're in every position of the diamond. We're always looking to upgrade, but I would say we're comfortable with those two guys.
So yeah, the Mets are set with Stearns and Alvarez, and I'm really excited for that next season, because Alvarez had a lot of trials and tribulations dealing with that thumb injury, overcoming that. Luis Stearns lighting the world on fire when he first came here. Elite defense, strong bat-to-ball skills, especially going gap to gap, and then things that obviously diminish throughout the course of the year. But I'm really excited to see how both those guys can do on respective sample sizes for 2025. And speaking of in-house options, David Stearns had also talked about Jeff McNeil, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Ronnie Mauricio is still progressing, but hasn't yet gotten involved with baseball activities, which is a problem for a guy who's been injured for a year plus, that we're hoping to see impact the Mets next season. But God willing, he continues to trend in the right direction. We can see him really tearing the cover off baseballs yet again, this time in the 2025 spring training.
Market. First said you're trying to win the World Series and, quote, pursuing it aggressively through the market. Do you agree with that assessment?
I certainly think we are pursuing aggressively players that we believe will help us win a World Series, not only this year, but for years to come.
So yeah, just simply put, the Mets are going to be very aggressive, especially on the Juan Soto front. Mike Puma is naturally trying to get a certain reply out of him when talking about not only any player, but specifically one in Juan Soto. And when talking about a bit more, and that's where I talked about Jeff McNeil earlier, just on the comfortability with him, but how things still may change on that front. I do want to go down here just for a hot second here to show you guys what I got going on this front, because there was one other tidbit that I want to share with each and every one of you. And yes, I got to make sure that I don't forget right here, right now, what we have going. It has everything to do with the following signing that you guys see right here. Right-hander Rico Garcia agreed to terms with the Mets on a minor league deal per source. Will receive an MLB invite. If selected on the roster, the deal is worth a prorated $900,000. Garcia led the International League with 20 saves last season in the Nationals organization. Our amazing buddy here on the platform and our pitching contributor, Isaac Rothman, Isaac Rothman on X, had this to say. Really intriguing fastball here. 19 induced vertical break from a 5.6 slot is well above average. He has been toying with a death ball-like shape in AAA. Changeup was nasty with a 51% whip percentage there that we see. And to break down a little bit further here on the pitch mix that you're going to get, you're getting obviously the four-seam fastball, which sits right around 94, the changeup at 85, the curveball at 82, and the cutter at 85. And the reason why we're not doing an individual video on Rico Garcia is because the Mets are going to be doing a lot of kind of spring training invites, minor league deal guys, and some of them will not impact the Mets at all, and some will. Rico is a guy that I think could impact the Mets for the better. He hasn't pitched in the big since 2023, in which he had a very inflated 9 ERA. However, what he has done in minor leagues the past couple seasons, including this past year, with just over a 3 ERA there or so in AAA with the Nationals, including roughly 90 strikeouts and a very good sample size there. Very intriguing stuff. And as Joe DeMeo, a friend of the channel here on SNY, he stated the following. The Mets have signed him, and he had a 3.94 ERA to be exact in 62 relief innings in 2024 with 89 strikeouts, that 3-pitch mix there. And he did famously strike out Francisco Alvarez that you guys can see right here, right now. Okay, never mind that because that's just going to glitch on me stupid, and that's fine. So we talked about the signing as we break down a little bit more, just a smidge more here on Rico Garcia. Again, a 7.71 K per nine in 2023 to a 4.63 walks per nine. I don't care at all about that, though, because David Stearns has proved his ability to go out and seek talent with guys either having, again, very interesting induced vertical break, the way that Isaac famously highlighted there, some really interesting aspects to his fastball and off-speed pitches. And we know that when it comes to someone in David Stearns, he's going to continue to surprise folks by acquiring guys that you never heard of, and I've been relaying this all offseason long, but you will know soon enough once you see, hopefully, the positive impact that they have in this Mets pitching lab that's brewing some great things there, starting in Port St. Lucie in spring in 2025. And before I let you all go, let's hear from Andy Martino, everyone's favorite reporter, said pretty much nobody, has the following to say here on, yes, Roki Sasaki or Riki Sasaki, because I understand it's very hard for Andy to get out his one of 3 tweets on the day without a spelling error. But he says the following: David Stearns went to Japan in September to see Roki Sasaki. It was less to scout and more to show respect and interest. Eerily similar to the Mets going out of their way to speak and talk to and gain respect with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And just like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I foresee the exact same situation to transpire because A, the likelihood of Sasaki being posted this offseason is very slim. There's no financial gain that his team in the NPB gets by letting him go because he can only sign for a minor league contract. So it's not even like they get this really big bonus there on a posting fee to the same extent that they would if he properly waits and then is exposed there to the free agent market for Major League Baseball. So Sasaki is not even a likelihood to be posted at this point in time. If he is posted, it's the Dodgers game to lose because it's not about money, it's about interest. There's been a long belief that Sasaki wants to pair with his friends there at Yamamoto and Ohtani, both that he pitched with and dominated with in the WBC a year and a half ago. Why should we believe anything different until proven otherwise? So I'm not going to beat a dead horse there. We talked about Sasaki a couple days ago. Check it out in case you guys haven't already. But that is the latest on the Mets and their current pursuit of Roki Sasaki is not for a lack of effort. Again, we're going all the way back to September. Still in September for the Mets throughout the regular season, David Stearns was doing a trip to Japan to talk to Roki when none of us knew about it until a couple months later. That is a man who works in silence. That is a man that gets me really excited about the Mets and their future. Guys, that's going to do it for our video. Thank you all so much for watching, listening. Let us know your initial reactions and thoughts about the potential pursuit of Willy Adames in the comments down below. Are you in favor or against that potentially happening? And everything else that we broke down today, let us know in the comments. I will be back here real soon with more content, all things Mets. Tomorrow we have some big topics to get into, potentially a live stream if I feel up for it. Not exactly sure with my post-surgery, so we'll see what happens there. But again, just thank you guys for the support. Always love chopping up on the Mets, and I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in a very short period of time over this next month. So that's what I'll leave you with. Have a great one, everybody. And no matter what, as always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.